Thank you. I didn't hear your name. Riley. And what's your last name?
Hawkins.
Riley Hawkins. Thank you, Riley. That was beautiful. All right. Now we are on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a second to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve.
I mean a motion, excuse me. And a second? Okay. All in favor? Aye. None opposed? Okay, now we have public comments, and I have a comment sheet from Amy Mendoza. So you are next.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having us again and for listening to me again. I just want to say that I realize how hard this conclusion was. I've seen people in tears. I've seen people say, oh my goodness, I can seriously affect people's lives by the choice we're making. I know it was necessary to do this because of the public, so that you can go to the public and say, we really investigated this. I mean, I think it was so important. I love the decision you came to, obviously. I would like to say that somehow, some way, I think it is important to come out with some sort of statement from the board that says, we made this choice, we feel confident in this choice, and after carefully combing through, going over the lines, we feel confident that every school has a purpose, has a reason. There was not a big enough financial savings to close a school. When I opened the Ojai Valley News, I had about 6 people on my staff say, Amy, you called this. You called the exact heading, and I think I even said it in front of you. Schools open for now. And I just feel like the public needs to have confidence in the district, because one of the problems, of course, is getting people to come. And so I think to put out some sort of statement collaboratively, I don't think it would be as impressive for somebody in the public to say, oh, I've been to the meetings and I agree, but just to put out a statement instead of relying on the newspaper to say, well, for now, and even though it might have saved money, and something strong. I don't know if it's an ad. Just to say to the public, we're open for business and we love our schools and please come, and they're so valuable and they're amazing. I personally, I don't know if the dad of the 6th grader from Summit School was here. I think people jump to conclusions, myself as well. When I heard there was one 6th grader, for example, I'm just taking one little snippet at Summit, I think, one 6th grader? Oh my goodness, that doesn't even make sense. And then you hear the dad standing here saying, oh, this is why my 6th grader's there, and Summit School saved his life. You know, that was a pretty emotional moment. I think we all felt that and went, wow. And if you're in this business, if you hadn't been sitting here and hearing these stories, I don't think you would get it. I have really good friends in the public that's, I've had big conversations with recently, and they say, well, I respectfully disagree with what you're saying. And I understand why, because if I hadn't been sitting here, I wouldn't have understood it. So I just get so bummed when I see, and I don't want the newspaper to say, well, we'll see what happens. I don't know. We're going to call it. But anyhow, that's it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you've done. And if there's any way we can do something other than, well, we'll see what happens, in May. I think we lost too many people. We now need to just bring them all back and say hooray, and put out balloons and signs and banners and wave our flags and say, come, please, everybody, please come to our schools. So Miners Oaks is working on that. I know the other schools are as well. We're just all working on opening our arms to everybody. So thank you very much for what you've done.
Are there any other public comments? Teresa, do you have something to add? Okay. Oh, Sal. All right. Okay. Go right ahead, Sal. You're next.
Perfect. Don't even have to sit down. Okay. Hello. Good evening. First of all, I wasn't able to be here last week. I had a prior commitment, so I couldn't be here, but I want to commend the board on their tentative vote to keep all 5 schools open at this time. Over the past several months, there has been much dialogue, both by the 7-Eleven committee and this board, about elementary student reconfiguration. The one common denominator that I have seen during this discussion is that we are all looking for what is best for the children of this district, albeit with differing perceptions of what that means or looks like. When I first got involved with this issue over 6 months ago, my thought was that we did not need to close any elementary school, that each of the 5 campuses fulfilled a need for a particular segment of our community. While I still believe the latter to be true, I am not so sure about the former. Since then, I've had an opportunity to sit down on 2 separate occasions, each time for about 2 hours, with Mr. Cantwell and just geek out about the numbers. We primarily reviewed the district's budget over the past 2 years and some of the forthcoming financial conundrums this district will have to endure. Unfortunately, as a district currently, we are not in a sustainable path. Closing an elementary campus might be our only option, but if it is, it should be an option of last resort. Closing a campus now without a definite plan for why to do so, or even what to do with the property in question afterwards, seems backwards. If closing an elementary campus is truly a measure of last resort, then there should at least be a plan in place outlining the tangible benefit of such a move. From what I've seen, we currently don't have that. Many have spoken about the faith and support this community has given the board with the passage of Measure J and the very possible necessity of this district to seek additional community support in the future. Well, a closure now without a plan would have only hindered those opportunities. However, this should be a wake-up call for all stakeholders of this community, but especially for us parents. If we truly value our own school and see it as our community and believe it should be part of our children's academic development, then we need to get involved. This just might be the only chance we have to avoid having this conversation again in a year or 2 with a district in dire straits. It has to happen now, and by getting involved, I don't necessarily mean we all have to run for school board or attend all these meetings, but just do more for our children's school than we have been. Maybe it's joining the school's PTA, PTO, or simply volunteering at your child's school. It could be as simple as getting to know your child's teacher better and maybe helping in the classroom. The point is for all of us to get more involved, do more than we have been. After all, the ones that will truly benefit will be our children. Also, more than ever, all of our campuses must be united. Divisiveness can be detrimental to our district. I believe this might be the only chance our valley has to possibly keep all 5 campuses open long-term, and it won't be easy. This district has some big hurdles ahead of it that are going to present challenges, but we as a community can't go down without a fight. So I challenge every single person here tonight and those watching at home, let's all roll up our sleeves and work together, not only to try to save our schools, but also to give our future, which is our children, the best educational environment possible. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. I just want to make one comment. Measure J is for students. It's not for the board. You know, it's to improve the school. So that's a really important thing to remember. And just as the parcel tax was really for students, it was to help raise money to get teacher better pay. But in the end, it really benefits the students. All right, Mr. Ulrich.
Good evening, board. Assistant Superintendent Cantwell, Ms. Smith.
Can you speak into the mic?
Oh, okay. Should I start again? Or? William Ulrich, 487 Gridley Road. Good evening, board. Good evening, Mr. Cantwell. Good evening, Ms. Smith. I want to thank, particularly I want to thank Mr. Cantwell for having given quite a bit of his time to a meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago, and for him embracing a suggestion to go in down and take a look at the container module portable classrooms. I don't think that's exactly what they're termed these days, but in any case, at Oak Park School, that was a suggestion that we raised, myself and one of the Citizens Oversight Committee members. And I would also like to thank the board for sitting through what I thought was a wonderful PowerPoint presentation, and it seemed that everyone had some very good responses to that. I think that we also have some ideas, not only additional ideas relative to the Miners Oaks campus, but also to some of the other schools that are been the subject of much discussion recently, and I look forward to the opportunity to share those as time and interest permits. Thank you very much.
Okay, one more speaker. All right, is that Mason over there? Yes, Mason, go ahead and step up to the mic, please, and you can adjust it so we can hear you.
Hello everyone, my name is Mason Rothermel, and I would like to tell you about my school, Summit School. Everybody out in public talk about my school in ways that make me, ways that don't make me happy. Like a lot of people say that it's a small school and it doesn't make enough money, so we have to shut it down. But that's not true about it. It's a great school, it makes lots amount of money, and what's good about it that's small is that everybody knows each other, so everybody knows that they can trust everybody, and then that they'll feel safe. Another thing is that I want you guys to come, like a lot of people said last time, I want you guys to come to our school and actually see what a great school it is and how the teachers teach, so you can tell everybody out in public what good things how great my school is, because this school is a great school, and it would be heartbreaking to me if you guys would shut it down. So please, I plead you not to shut down Summit School. Thank you.
Are there any more public comments? Okay, so now we're going to move on to, oh, one more. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I was here last week, and I wanted to get up and talk, but oh, sorry. My name's Ashley Kotzian. That's good. And, okay, that should work. I'm a graduate of Summit, so last week I couldn't just get up here because I probably would have cried because my heart is in Summit. This probably would have been best last week when we were all fighting together, but I feel I have a duty to go ahead and speak from my heart. My name is Ashley Kotzian again. I attended Summit Elementary from kindergarten to 6th grade. I believe that all of the Ojai schools are amazing schools. However, Summit's unique structure makes it a little more special. When I attended Summit 20 some odd years ago, all classrooms were full with an average of about 20 students in each classroom, and all of them were combo classes. For me and those who attended Summit, this was and is a huge advantage. Just like you heard last week, the older kids learn leadership and patience from helping the younger students, and the younger students look up to the older students and gain so many role models and even friends. I think that's the best part, making friends of all ages and not thinking that it's not cool to be friends with the little kids or be intimidated to make friends with the older kids. Having multi-age small classrooms gives the students a unique kind of confidence and guidance. You can't hide in a small crowd, you can only excel. Once students eventually graduate, move on to college, their classrooms will be filled with students of all ages. And once they graduate and go off into the workforce, again, everyone isn't the same age. You all graduated in different years, and you collaborate beautifully, making important decisions for our community, and I'm sure you learn a lot from each other. I would now like to talk a little bit about the relationships that are formed at Summit. As I'm sure you now understand, it's more like a family. I still keep in contact with so many classmates from Summit from all the different grades, not just my own. I'm best friends with 5 girls who attended Summit with me. We weren't all in the same grade, and we are each other's village. That's 26 years of friendship. Not everybody gets that in their lifetime. Our children call us aunts and uncles, and our children call each other cousins. About a dozen of our moms still get together for an Upper Ojai brunch a few times a year to catch up and reminisce. They are the families we are so lucky to have met, so many years ago and chose to keep in our lives because they are truly good, genuine, humble, and hardworking people that are always there for each other. In closing, I'd like to share and also gloat about some of the students who received their amazing childhood education from Summit. My older brother and many others who also attended Summit are now firefighters. My older brother even donated a kidney to a fellow firefighter and told us to not tell anybody because he was simply doing it because it was the right thing to do and he didn't want any praise. Sorry, I am gonna go over, but I have to say it. My little brother is a very talented welder and has made a living for himself since he was 16. I myself am a college graduate with a degree in Spanish. I worked as a translator before becoming a stay-at-home mom and am currently teaching myself a third language. My first official job was at Summit when I was 15, helping with the summer program. I walked 2 miles each way to get there and back home and was so happy every step of the way. As for the students who attended with us, there's a very talented makeup artist, successful business owners, teachers, marine biologists, lawyers, nurses, law enforcement, artists, environmental scientists, PhD recipients, writers, and most of all, amazing parents. Summit may not have the enrollment it did 20 years ago, but it continues to instill the same values in all of its students. Summit keeps kids humble. It teaches them to get their hands dirty and grow something, teaches them to be responsible and to think for themselves, even if it goes against the majority. It teaches them to not rely on technology for everything and to value things so they may never take anything for granted. It teaches them to work with each other, learn from each other, respect and be kind from each other, and that everyone has value. I believe that Summit's the type of school more parents are looking for these days, a school that will ground kids and teach them to do things simply because it's the right thing to do, a school that takes kids back to simpler times of true hard work to achieve their goals and genuinely appreciate and be proud of the end result, no matter how big or how small it is. A school that will teach kids to not be afraid to speak up for what they believe in and that they can achieve their dreams, and if they fail, that's okay, at least they tried. Summit is such an unbelievable asset to this community. I could go on for days and days, but I won't. I only hope you realize that Summit is the seed of the future, and I hope you choose to plant it, nurture and grow it, harvest it, and pass it on to future generations. Thank you very much.
All right, so now we're going to move on to 4.1, a public hearing, the issue of elementary schools configuration for the 2017-2018 school year. And we are, I guess, ready to, are we going to have some discussion, or are we ready to take a vote? We do have a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll move to open the public hearing.
All right. Okay, any discussion on this? We've had a lot of public comments. Do we have any discussion now from the public about this issue? Any other discussion?
I would just like to commend all of those who have attended our meetings and have spoken. Mm-hmm. I think it's been wonderful to not only to get input as a board, but also to hear the affection, the love, the support that people have for their schools. And I think, isn't that what we're all about? Not only providing an education, but giving members of our community great memories that they'll have throughout their lifetimes, and a reason to continue to support public education here in the Valley.
Okay. Any other comments from the public about this issue?
Was that you as a public person just now?
I think so. All right, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Are we going to comment, or are we after the public's done? Only I'm allowed to.
We can comment.
I'll move
Yes,
to close
we
the
are.
public
Yeah.
hearing.
Okay. Do we have a second? All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
All right, none opposed. All right, now we're on to a motion to approve the final plan, which is to keep all of the schools open.
So I think it's worth having a little conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
I also would like to thank everyone who came and spoke to us. As I said last week, we work for you, and it is not as common an experience as it frankly should be for people to come and talk to us and tell us what you care about and tell us what you want. And you all did it so well with such great respect. Not that you have to show respect. Again, we work for you, but it was just a nice vibe. There was a lot at stake, and yet everyone came here presuming, I think, the good faith of everyone involved in the process, which is a great approach, a positive approach, certainly greatly appreciated by me and I'm sure the rest of the board. And I want to say, since our tentative vote, I've encountered a few people. I was at the football game and I was getting a sandwich and somebody immediately says, so you're going to keep all the schools open? And the suggestion being that, we didn't make a hard decision, that we somehow capitulated to an emotional appeal. And I just want to be clear that, at least from my perspective, that's not what happened. I very much agree with what Amy said, and actually a lot of what you said as well, Sal, that this was a long and objective and information-filled process. And at the end of it, at least for where I sit, I simply didn't see a great benefit of any kind to closing a school. And even if I were to have just focused on the question of finances, I still didn't see a great benefit. I happen to agree that closing a school should be the last resort if you're seeking to save money. But even if it weren't the last resort, I still wouldn't have done it, because I really believe that Ojai is a place where if we were to close a school, and by the way, what we did learn, if we didn't know it already, and I think most of us knew it already, we do have 5 beloved schools that each are thriving. We have 5 thriving schools. And and every time and you go to place, whether it's Topa or Miners Oaks or Miramani or Summit, whose graduation I attended last year, and I was so impressed with that, with 3 kids, or it was 4 kids who knew each other like the backs of their hands. 1 dude who was very lucky with 3 girls. It's just a great community. And one of the things that I learned when I was doing my research about other school closures is, believe it or not, there have been school closures when pretty much nobody blinked. School boards operated in a vacuum and closed schools, and there was no reaction. So the fact that people came out, spoke so passionately in favor of their schools, combined with the fact that, in my view, there is no great savings to be achieved. And frankly, I think it's great we have 5 schools that we can use as schools in their communities for all the things that schools do that are in addition to just teaching kids. I personally also believe that bigger schools aren't necessarily better schools. For my own children who are in elementary school, I personally prefer them to be in a smaller rather than a bigger school. That's my choice, I recognize, but I'm one person on the board and I get a vote. So I want to again thank you all for coming and giving us information. Those who weren't here, some of whom sent us stuff. I'd like to thank Hank and Andy and my fellow board members. I learn about these meetings that Andy has, and it's remarkable that so many people are able to say to Andy, hey, thank you for having a meeting with me. And there are multiple people that he has done that with, and really, and that's, I think, with Hank's leadership. We are trying to be an open book. We're trying to be transparent. We're trying to lay it all out there and collectively as a community make good decisions. So I'm very comfortable with the decision, and I thank you for helping us get there.
I want to make one point really strongly, and that's that I cannot express how much I appreciate the work that's gone in from the 7-Eleven committee, who I do not think realized they were signing away a major portion of their life when they joined the committee. And I'm not ignoring their work. I think they did yeoman's work. I don't know that I could have managed that workload. And I think within the constraints of the decisions that they were asked to make, they did their best job. I think by voting to keep all of the schools open, we're not really denying or ignoring the 7-Eleven because the analysis was important. But I do think that I also recognize that there's more to this than a money equation. Money is a major driver. But there's community unity. There's community, period. And so what we've seen is that we have that. And we didn't go into this, at least I didn't, with asking myself, do I need to close a school? I went into this saying, where can we best spend our Measure J money? It was never a goal to close schools. And I also agree that you close a school when you have to, and not before, because regardless of the finances, even if the finances are glaring you in the face, it's still going to hurt if you have to close. So you don't go there casually, you don't go there unless you absolutely have to, and you've already explored all of the other alternatives. And I think that there are still some alternatives that we can explore before we go there. That being said, Amy, the for now, I wish I could take that off the table. Honest, I really do. I wish that I could say for now and forevermore. But the fact is, we have a reality in front of us, and we cannot afford to get complacent. So for now is, for me, the best I can do. And I can say my commitment, as long as I'm on the board, is to seek every other option before we close a school, and only do that if we have no other choice. But the realities of our enrollment are what they are. And at some point, if we can't turn that around, or at least stabilize it, we are going to have this conversation again. So when I say for now, I don't mean you're all on probation, because that's not the message that I think needs to be sent. I think the message is, let's keep working, let's keep this activity going to make sure that we never have to have this conversation again. Because if we don't, we will. So I want to say one other thing, and that's, as a relative newcomer both to the Ojai Valley and certainly to the board, it's very hard for me to express how impressed and appreciative I am of everybody that I've come in contact with. This is a very emotional question. This could easily have denigrated and devolved into accusations and shouting, and it did not. This was a heartfelt conversation from everybody. I felt like this was a team effort from everybody. And I cannot, having been around boards for a long time, I cannot tell you how gratifying that is and how unusual. So I think our community, our family of the OUSD owes itself a round of applause for participating, for being respectful, for being fact-based, and for being a participant in the conversation and not just an observer or a finger pointer. So this has been very hard work. I was telling somebody else, I've been around for a long time. I'm not a young kid. This is one of the hardest decisions I think I've ever had to make. And I work in human resources where I fire people. So, I know from hard decisions, this one was the hardest I've ever done. So I'm comfortable with where I am. I'm very appreciative of all the input that's gone into this, and that's, I think, enough.
I don't know if I need to. I do hope that this process showed our community that the district, I think what impressed me the most is the administration really didn't weigh in on an opinion and try to influence the community or the board, that really the community was the base of the process. And I really appreciate that. And I think actually, in the 2 years I've been on the board, that has always been the case. But this was an opportunity for the community to see that it wasn't just, oh, they don't understand, or if we speak our hearts, then they'll, we'll pull on the heartstrings. No, there was a lot of information which the 7-Eleven committee had done and which the administration put forward, and that the community, even members of the community who would provide information, sort of statistical information that's helpful, whether it's about the feeling of the school or the numbers in the school or the type of classroom. But I just really appreciate that the way this district runs is to ask, to look, to question, and then decide. It's not any other way. And I want to thank you, Hank, for starting that process that way.
As you know, I voted not to approve the recommendation to keep all the schools open, and it has nothing to do with the fact that all of our schools are really outstanding. I think that our students are incredibly lucky. We have the most dedicated teachers and administrators that any student could ever want and benefit from. It's just amazing. The programs at all of our schools are completely outstanding. My concern is, of course, financial, and I do believe that our Measure J money is not going to go as far as it needs to go. We have a lot of really expensive repairs that we need to make to the schools. I also believe that because of our shrinking enrollment, that we are faced with the issue of what do we do with all of these campuses. That is the basis of my negative vote for, against not closing the school. So I really think that I don't want anyone to think that I don't believe you or trust in your judgment or respect your opinions, which of course I completely do. And I am sad to be doing this at the end of my term as a school board member, but this is the reality that I feel comes from my heart. And but I thank everyone for coming and being so honest and so caring.
So I was just swapping notes here with Linda very quickly. A couple things I'd like to say that are really more under the general heading of protocol and process. But before I do, I want to thank Jane for acknowledging the position that I took relative to this decision. For those of you who've worked with me, you know it's not necessarily easy for me to fail to offer a recommendation. I have a tendency to be pretty forthright about what I think is best. And in this case, I thought what was best was to have the board, I use the word struggle in public, listen, think hard about what they heard, come back the next week, think again, come back the next week. And that's why we set up the calendar to end as late as October 17th. Just to let you know, you don't have to come back again for this after tonight. Tonight, final really is final. We are meeting on October 17th, and I would strongly recommend we go back to the boardroom for that. I don't think we need to be here because I don't think the audience will be of a magnitude that we'd have to be here. But in any case, that's process. Second, I wanted to just comment a little bit on the mini dialogue that Amy and Mike had, and speak directly to the word thereafter, which is the last word in the motion, or the recommendation, therefore the motion. My role in this is to be sure that wording is chosen carefully. I've tried to do that over the last 6 months, going all 5 months or so, going back to May when I made the recommendation for the calendar. Then we re-upped that in August, and we've been operating since. The reason I chose this word, now first of all, always chose the word configuration, never reconfiguration, because that would have implied something that would have clearly now been untrue. The purpose of picking 2017-18 school year and thereafter was if we put a period after school year, well then obviously you have not just the implication but the direct statement that this is going to happen all over again next year. So that would have been absurd. I threw out a lot of possibilities, had a lot of synonyms out there. I just picked thereafter because when a board makes a decision like this and does not specify that, for example, this decision's in place until the 2019-20 year. Well, there'll be different people sitting around the table. In great likelihood, that's sort of been the history of boards in general. And B, it would be implying something that would be impossible for a board to really get their arms around in late 2016. So thereafter is the best word I could find to put a final statement to the issue. That having been said, we all know that whether it's the Congress or a state legislature or a school board, any succeeding group of people can revisit any decision made by the former group. So, knowing that, I just felt that picking a pretty long number of years under the heading of thereafter made the most sense. So that's why the recommendation is what it is. Yes, it could be revisited, but I hope this strongly states that after a year of working on this between the 7-Eleven Committee and the Board of Education, that the issue is being put to rest by this board.
I just wanted to add to the discussion here. I'm really pleased with the decision that was made. Again, it was a difficult decision. And again, as my colleagues have mentioned, the work of the 7-Eleven Committee was really important in coming to a decision. But what making this decision means is that we need to continue to make hard decisions about how we're going to spend the money, the Measure J funds, because we will need to allocate more for each school than we would if we didn't have a school to allocate funds to. We're going to have to make hard decisions about a lot of things, and hopefully, as a community, we can work together and continue to work together to come up with ideas not only for best allocating the funds that are remaining, but also perhaps creating more revenues for the district so that we can continue to support our teachers, our staff, and our facilities in the way that we really deserve. And so congratulations to all of you. You've done a fantastic job in rallying the troops, coming to the meetings, making important contributions. And I would just ask that you continue to do that in the months and years to come as we continue to make difficult decisions about how to allocate the limited resources we have and or create new resources for us to use in the future.
So do I have a motion to keep all 5 elementary schools open in the 2017-18 school year and thereafter?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nay. It is passed. The elementary schools will stay open. Thank you all for your enthusiastic comments. Now we're going to move on to 5.1. This is sufficiency of textbooks and or instructional materials. We have a public hearing. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing about this issue?
I'll move to open the public hearing.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. So does anybody have any comments in terms of this particular agenda item? This is the sufficiency of textbooks and other instructional materials for 2016-17. Do we have any comments? Okay.
Can I just quickly comment that this I'm sorry. I'll wait.
Shall we close the public first?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Like it when you speak as a citizen.
Yes. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Okay.
If I can talk,
Do we have a
I'll second
second?
it.
Okay. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
None opposed. Okay. Now we can have comments from the board.
I have been really excited over the course of the last year or two that we have been able to look at new textbooks and approve new textbooks for a lot of classes. I can't tell you how many years we had this item on the agenda and had not seen a new textbook for in many, many years. Now,
It doesn't say sufficiency of new textbooks.
no, it doesn't. But what it, I think the important thing here, and part of it is driven by Common Core and the new curriculum, and a lot of this was really required to stay up to date. But the good side of it is that we have a lot of new textbooks that will benefit students for many years to come. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So you probably don't know that we vote on this every year because we're required to. But the fact that we do have new textbooks in many courses is really something to be celebrated.
Could I don't know, Andy or Hank, could you fill us in on where we are on the? I know English still doesn't have a textbook, right? We're working with
Yeah, in
supplemental
fact,
materials.
Well, we know based on Maryland's report from several months ago that this is pilot year, right? They're looking at 2 different approaches. So I would expect that, sometime in the spring, we would hope that we would have a recommendation for going one direction or the other.
Okay, I just wanted to use this resolution as an opportunity to point out to the public that there are many, many things that the board deals with throughout the year. I know there's been a lot of focus lately on the Measure J funds, but that's just a tiny portion of what the district deals with. So your input into other elements of our job are very important, and I think it's very important that the community recognizes that there's a lot going on, and we'd love to, I think somebody said that already, have you come and participate more often, or at least send emails or thoughts or ideas. I think it's important that we recognize there's a big pie here, and there's a lot to work on, not just, the one slice.
I had a suggestion, which is that when next time we're asked to evaluate and approve a textbook, I would love it if we could expand the scope of those who will help us make that decision. So as I understand it now, it's typically the school in question, or if it's elementary school, it'll be a group of elementary school teachers. If it were Matilaha or Nordhoff, it would be those in those schools who have the responsibility over the book in question. And I would just love to go out to the community a little bit. I bring it up just because, I was recently working with my daughter in the new one of the new textbooks, the Matilaha math book. And it's like, wow, I think there are different opinions. Some love the book and some don't like it so much, but. The particular thing that we were working on, I was a little maddened by the way that they were trying to explain it, and I thought to myself, maybe, it's very hard, because I remember looking through that book, and spending some time on it as if I were doing something. It's just hard for a board member, I think, to engage it in the way that maybe a retired teacher might, or somebody else with a different, kind of a little more like seeing how the reality of the book being in use might work. Of course, virtually any legitimate textbook made by one of the big companies is probably, a good textbook. But it's just that part of my job, I sort of feel like I've let down my constituents a little bit, because it's just hard to do it. It's hard to review a book and have a meaningful reaction to it when you're not teaching it.
Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 16-17-06? This is the sufficiency of textbooks and/or instructional materials.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.